There's something that the whole world missed out on throughout the ages of this story being out, is the fact that we've always focused on what Bob did at S4 or at Area 51, working on flying saucers, but there was a lot left out about who Bob Lazar actually is as a human being.
Was achieved, not that any of that would have required alien technology.
So basically, the delay happened for a lot of reasons, and the main reason was quality. As we were building the project, as we had developed S4, the entire Papoose mountain range and all that landscape around the base, we had done that all in 3D software. But the actual software was actually improving over time, and we had to make some strategic decisions. If we were to just continue with what we had created, or do we go the extra mile, spend the extra dollars, and upgrade the project? So the decision was technical, it was quality, it was for visuals, and we really hope people like the final product. The project actually was not supposed to be a documentary film, neither was it supposed to be a VR experience. Initially started out that we were going to be making a die-cast model of the flying saucer he worked on, and as this project was evolving and we were building the craft in a 3D environment, we started seeing the potential of creating the entire base. And we started building the hangar, which was super cool because now you have a real three-dimensional, physical, real size environment where this craft was parked in. We were slowly getting into the concept of maybe this is going to be a VR experience. We were not thinking film. And we said, well, we could bring people back to 1988 with a time machine.
The sleek, stainless steel DeLorean.
At a certain point, I saw an ad come up on my computer that there's this company in the United States that rents DeLorean time machines from Back to the Future. So when we finally rented the car, we all went out to Las Vegas. The whole production crew here, Bob and his wife, all flew out to Las Vegas, and we all drove out into the desert, and we ended up on this huge dry lake in the middle of nowhere. The guy who owns the car was there because he wanted to make sure we were not going to break the car, because we were only supposed to like drive it really slow, like 10 miles an hour. And we thought, this is just not good enough. We need something better. And he eventually gave us the okay. And as soon as that happened, it was like a turning point for the whole project. We knew at that moment that we had the opportunity to create a documentary film. The shots we had were just way too good. Bob's a very, very down-to-earth, kind, gentle soul. Like, he's a good guy. You get to meet him, you see a different side of what you kind of read about a lot out there. So, I mean, this is not a person who just did that back in '88 and '89. And this is a man who was in charge of a big event called Desert Blast for many, many years in Nevada. Whenever you're reading about Bob Lazar on the internet, it's just always gravitating to what he did at S4. But one of the things that I can say is he's an awesome person, very kind, very honest, very credible. What he's done with us is the generosity of his time, the generosity of providing us the information. I mean, he's always been cooperative. He's never stopped helping us. He's always been there at any moment we needed him. So that part of Bob Lazar is going to translate. I can say it here in this interview, but you'll also see it in the film. The VFX evolved in such an incredible way. I mean, we started off with the basics of 3D. So the last 3 years have been paramount in the world of 3D, specifically in cinematics, things that you could use in actual film, and not just video games or 3D virtual reality experiences. So the evolution of it is paramount to what we actually saw in the results of the project. The biggest thing was how we went about creating the textures for the craft. Regardless of how amazing this technology is that allows us to do all this, the craft itself was a very difficult build that we had to do. It was the most challenging. First of all, the craft itself, although it looks like it's made of metal, there is a specific look we were aiming for. Bob had explained exactly what this thing looked like, how it didn't have too much reflectivity, but it still had a little bit. There were a little bit of usage on it, but it looked pretty new. But when you're creating that in a virtual environment, there's a very complicated situation when you're in proximity to the object and when you go further away. Every time we were close up, it was perfect. As soon as we would go further away from the object, it would start looking like a cartoon. So we had a lot of trouble with that. And the evolution of what we were developing inside the softwares, along with coming up with the best textures and mixing them together, creating our own textures, I would say that was the biggest challenge at a certain point. We couldn't get that craft to look real. From a distance, up close, it always looked amazing. And we finally got that after 2 years. We had to actually write our own programs, either tools that were customized by our team inside some of those programs, or actual softwares that we created. So one of them is the de-aging Bob Lazar software, which was completely done in-house. Although he's a pretty well-known figure out there, there's not a lot of stuff back in the 80s with Bob. So we had to write the software ourselves to actually utilize the limited amount of data that was out there to recreate him as a younger Bob today. So that was a really cool thing. There was a lot of, challenges have been every single day, whether they be physical challenges. Did we have the right shot? Did we get the right angle? Like anybody who's in filming knows what that's all about. Sometimes you're dealing with cinematic challenges. In terms of the softwares and how we were blending real live action with CG, that's a challenge, because what we want to do is make sure that it's a seamless transition, that you do not see when it goes from real to not real, basically a 3D environment. I think that probably is the most challenging thing and time consuming as well, but the result is absolutely incredible. The whole project, well, the whole movie was shot out in the Nevada desert. We actually shot on a dry lake with the DeLorean. We then went out to Area 51 at the back gate where we shot there with the DeLorean as well. We went out to Rachel, Nevada. A lot of interviews were done in Las Vegas. We did that with Mario Santa Cruz, Gene Huff, George Knapp. We actually went to George Knapp's house. That was really, really fun. Got to meet George, got to experience a whole bunch of cool stuff that he had at his place with Bob. And then Bob Lazar came here to Montreal, which is a huge, huge production that we did right here in this studio, where we had him on a green screen. We had him in different locations interviewing him about everything that happened at S4. Spending time with Bob was not just like 1 or 2 shoots. I mean, this is almost like a 3-year project. It's like incredible to have had that experience, but I also got to understand who he really is. So did the team. I mean, we spent days together, we traveled together.
I get so excited.
Well, this is great.
That's the smartest, biggest kid you'll ever meet in your life.
I mean, if you really want to see Bob's soul come to life, you also have to see him in his lab, in his work environment, where he's playing around with things that we usually don't see people doing. And he's so good at this. He's very careful, very methodical. He's a professional at it. And it's impressive to see that. And you can see his true passion is working with chemicals, working with explosives, working with uranium. I mean, this is something that you could see. This is who he really is. I can't stress enough how it was important to show the true Bob Lazar in all this. This is something that we experienced, and we felt as this was happening that we had to bring this to the public, to the audience. So thanks again. We're going to be giving you a ton of information about what's to come. Definitely like and subscribe to this channel, because there's definitely a lot of cool stuff on the way.